We're back. Minister?
Yeah, there are forums where I talk exactly the language you say here, because there is a tactics in everything. Depending on where you are, who you talk to, what is it you expect to come out of that talk. But at the same time, we need to, if we are not honest, and Georgia does not have a flexibility of not being honest and direct. If we are not honest, it's not going to work ever. We need to be honest, and we need to be grateful for things that are actually happening. And I disagree about the evaluation of the war or after war or stopping the war scenario the way you've described. Yes, if we were members of NATO, 2008 would not happen, no doubt about it. We are all convinced of it, we all believe in it, or we want to believe in it, that there is not going to be a third world war between the two. And it's practical, it's seeable, and we can easily talk about it, and we can only hope that it will never happen. But at the same time, the war in Georgia lasted only 5 days, as the world keeps saying it, but in real terms, actual warfare lasted 3 days. Could it be more?
Yes, but in 3 days they almost occupied your country, I'm sorry.
No, could it? Yes, well, they did not occupy the whole country,
almost the capital.
But that's not the point. The point is, if there was no intervention, what would have happened?
I agree.
That's the point. That's the question today. Was that almost, would have been that almost word relevant anymore or not? Would I be sitting here as a Minister of Defense? It's not about personally me, but a Georgian Minister of Defense sitting here and talking to you? Probably no. We all remember what happened in those days. We all remember President Sarkozy's involvement when he did rounds of travel between Moscow and Tbilisi, and he broke actually the peace. I mean, he brokered the peace, sorry. He broke the war and he achieved the peace. And stopped the actual hostility in a very short period of time. We would have had more casualties, both among militaries and civilians. We would have more occupied territories. We would have any wrong scenario you can imagine. We all remember when the bombing of the cities outside South Ossetia stopped. That was when the American ship arrived in Georgian port. I mean, there are things that are important. And if we don't appreciate them, if we don't see them, if we don't evaluate properly, then we are not honest partners. This is exactly when I say that Georgia deserves to be treated on its own merits. This is exactly the point, that we are a nation able of being grateful. We are a nation being able to pay back, to stay loyal.
But sometimes they wait too much, Minister. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Sometimes they what?
Yes, sometimes they wait too much to intervene.
Yes, but
if I look to Ukraine, if I look to Georgia, of course, well, it's my point of view. They waited too much. If Romania wouldn't have been a member of NATO, I don't know what would be my future and my kids' future. I'm sorry, but in looking to Moldova, I see Moldova abandoned by the European Union now and by United States. If I look to the government in Moldova, if I look to Ukraine, I'm not satisfied with what the big powers of Europe are doing in terms of NATO members, of EU members.
Well, I will be the first person to say I'm not happy about those policies, because again, our NATO membership is long due. Full stop. I'm convinced of it, and there is no argument I've ever heard that will prove otherwise. But again, okay, we can sit and complain here and say that they're late, they're not acting, they're bad guys. Well, there are a couple of questions to it. Who is better guy than them? Nobody in this world, right? These are the countries we are. Why do we want to go be members of the European Union?
Us?
Because us.
You
are already members of the European Union. Why do we want to be members of the European Union, or Moldova for that matter? Because we want to be them.
Yeah.
No, it is because we want to be them. We want to be part of that club. We want to be Europe, for everything that it is worth of. With the late decision making, with the not the best bureaucracy in the world, and with safety and welfare, all good and problematic things about the European Union. We don't make choices like, oh, I want to be a member of the European Union just for this part of the European Union, but for the other things about the European Union, I don't want to be there. We don't have that luxury, first of all, and second of all, we should learn, and I'm talking about Georgia here, we should learn taking responsibility ourselves. The things went wrong in my country, dramatically wrong, for a number of years. And it's not necessarily because somebody was late or somebody did not accept us into the NATO in time, because we have also made our own mistakes. And this is also critically important because we need to behave. Well, we want to be members of NATO.
What kind of mistakes?
But I'll respond in a second. But we want to be members of NATO, but we need to be NATO membership compatible country. This is equal. These two are equally important. What kind of mistakes?
Yes.
Well, we've almost destroyed freedom of press in my country for a number of years. We've created a system where torture was a routine thing in prisons. We had years that we are not very proud of when we've been depriving people of their private property just like that because of the will of one man. There were a lot of things that we were falsifying elections one after another. Yeah. So again, if question is, if we were perfect democracy, would we become members of NATO? Probably no. But do we have the right today to say why you did not get us in NATO in 2006, for example? No. It's kind of both things. That's why I said, when this government came to power in 2012, we've said, we did not say many things. We did not promise many things. We've said most important things that we thought were most important for the country. We've said, we will not allow for the war in this country, whatever it takes. We will do our best.
Okay, what is the relation with Russia now?
Strategic patience.
You told me that you mentioned our viewers you will not go into details, but explain to us what does it mean, strategic patience?
Well, what it means is that we have occasional fly-ins and outs of unidentified flight objects on our territory.
And they're not UFOs?
No, not yet. So we are not going to shut them down, because we are responsible people
provoked.
And we understand consequences of it. We say you cannot provoke us. We say you cannot make us make decisions that will make our people to suffer more. So that's why we say, okay, we will document it, we will record it, we will have it all ready. When time comes, there will be responsibility for it. But not today.
You mean planes, Russian planes, or other kind of...
well, we don't have planes yet. But
no,
we have drones and we have sometimes military helicopters.
They come, the Russians are not coming with the planes? You're referring to 8 drones and other kind of...
No, we don't have planes. Okay. No, we are not on that level yet of intervention.
Well, I'm sorry, but it's not about being that level. 8 countries or 9 countries of EU were surveyed by...
I know, but in our case,
by Russian planes,
enough, I guess.
By Russian army planes. That's why I'm asking if they were doing that.
No, we don't. We never had anything like that.
Even
and
in the United Kingdom.
I'm not going to sit and lie here, of course. No,
it's
not happening. But we have creeping annexation going on every day. There was a very nice BBC reporting, actually. I will probably remember all my life the wording it started with when a journalist reported from South Ossetia saying that he met a family who went to sleep in Georgia and woke up in South Ossetia. And it is literally true, because overnight they drew another fence right in the middle of their yard, and the house was eventually on the other side of the administrative border. So is it anything positive? No. Are we happy about it? No. Is there a political cost we are going to pay for it? Yes. But at the same time, we say once again, this is important. All those people's emotions, feelings are important for the state. But we are not going to react dramatically to those kinds of actions because we understand the consequences. Our goal is very clear. We say, we've told to Abkhaz, we've told to Ossetians, publicly, from president to prime minister to speaker of parliament, ministers, members of parliament, everybody. We've said, we are going to the European Union. To this one unity that brings safety and prosperity at the same time.
Safety not so much, prosperity yes.
Yeah, that brings better quality education, that brings better quality healthcare, that brings more trade, so on and so forth. Let's go together. You are not ready today, we understand. Door is open. We show progress, you can join at any stage of the progress.
Are you afraid of the Russians provoking, let's say, like they did in Crimea, the people to an open vote for them to be part of Russia in Abkhazia and Ossetia?
Well, we've been promised just last week by the self-proclaimed president of South Ossetia that there will be referenda in South Ossetia. So let's see. It's
so such a move is they have in mind.
They've been talking about it for 2 or 3 years now.
And what would Georgia do if they would decide and Russia would proceed like they did with Crimea?
Well, their question is what the rest of the world is ready to do about it.
Well,
right? The same as in Crimea.
The rest of the world
well,
didn't
for
do
Georgia,
nothing
it's
with Crimea.
we said it several times. There is no dramatism in those kinds of illegal actions, right? No one is going to recognize it. No one is going to accept it. The same way as their independence is not recognized or accepted by anybody. If there is a solution to those conflicts, there will be solution. Whether it's prior to referendum or after the referendum, so-called referendum, doesn't matter. You cannot call a referendum something where 80% of the population are deprived to participate. If the Georgians are back and are part of this referenda, okay, let's do that. And let's see what will be the result, right? We are not going to play this game. It's pretty obvious that every step like that aims at one single thing, to provoke us, to make us cross that line, which will involve us in another war.
And you as a Minister of Defense of Georgia will not intervene in such a situation, military in Georgia?
Absolutely no.
Okay. Because it's important to know that if such a thing would happen, because Ukraine did not intervene in Crimea, they left the things to go with the flow.
No, we are not going to intervene militarily, neither in South Ossetia or Abkhazia, and there is a very simple reason for that. People who live on the other side of administrative border, whatever they believe in today, whatever they think about Georgians today, they are citizens of Georgia, and we are not going to fight citizens of Georgia. That's not the goal or idea on anybody's mind in Georgian government. And we have made it very clear to everybody many times. That's why every time when there is a question, is there an immediate threat of a war to restart? My answer is very simple, and I very openly and convinced answer that there is no immediate threat to any war affair to start in Georgia, because Russia has accepted them and recognized them as independent states.
Yes,
it is supporting.
De facto,
right?
yeah, of course.
De facto and de jure for them.
And de jure for them, yes.
For them. So now, they're not going to fight there, right? For them, those are friendly, independent states in partnership.
Yes.
We say we are not going to fight there, because these are our people. Whatever the status, de facto status of those territories is today, these are citizens of Georgia. We value the same way as citizens of Georgia living on the other side of the administrative border. Who is going to fight there? We are not going to fight. Russians are not going to fight. And of course, South Ossetians are not going to kill each other. So why this question is not even there. And when we say that the only potential for the war to restart is if Georgia will react to the provocation. We don't say it just as a matter of word, but we really believe in it.
Understand.
We are not going to allow for that.
So you will not react to such a possible the referendum.
But also, no, not to the referendum, definitely, but also there are, every state has its red lines. And of course, I don't want to be understood
What
that
would be the red
Georgia
line? What would be the
is
red
this
line for
state
Georgia?
which doesn't care.
What would be the red line for Georgia?
Well, that's the question we, as ministers of defense, do not answer.
Why?
Publicly.
Coming into your territories, or?
Well, they are in our territory.
No. I mean crossing that line, that let's say the border that it was not officially.
No,
recognized.
we don't see it like that. They are already on our territories.
Okay, I understand the ministers are not answering to this question. So it's no possible threat or war between you and Russia. That's a good news.
I don't see that.
Now, I like that you recognize that Georgia made many mistakes as well. Now, it's not only the guilt of the Western community that did not react enough or did not do enough for you to come and be part of the EU and NATO. And I like that.
If you look for excuses.
No, it's not about it. No, it was a realistic approach.
Yeah.
I have to see.
If I know that someone is looking for excuses, why do I give them those excuses? And Georgia gave over the years lots of excuses.
Sure, but here is not about finding excuses, just making an honest analysis. Yeah. And it is also the fault of the international community, and we are part of it, and I have to assume our responsibility in this story, and you assume your responsibility, and I like that very much. Now, my last question to you, Minister, of course, is that you are a woman in politics. You are a minister at 42 years old, and when I asked your ambassador, which is quite young one, in Bucharest, he said, well, I'm not so young in my administration actually, because very young people are in the government, in the diplomacy and so on.
Yeah, Minister of Foreign Affairs is much younger than me. So here you go.
Well, yes, exactly. How is that this reform possible? And well, actually, this would be a longer answer, and we don't have so much time. I want to focus a little bit on one question. Your husband is also the Speaker of the Parliament. You are a politician. You are a minister, an important politician in Georgia. Well, what do you do in your spare time?
I don't have one. That is a very simple answer to that. I don't have one.
This was a difficult question, wasn't it?
Yeah, I have two beautiful kids, and if there is any time, then this time belongs to them. But unfortunately, lately there was not that much time to them. But just to answer very briefly the age question of the politicians and ambassadors and the political class
and administration.
I think it's a very the answer is very clear. It's a post-Soviet generation, and this is the choice that was made by Georgia. It does not mean that we do not have for example, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee in Parliament is older than me. He won't like me saying it, but I just love the guy, so okay. I can allow myself to say that. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that there is an ageism, that we said no to everybody who was born before and who was born after. But, and he's a great man. And he was a Minister of Foreign Affairs, he was the National Security Council chair, and he's the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee now. And his experience is probably one of the most valuable. Personally, for me, working with him was one of the biggest experience I've ever gained. But when the country makes choice in terms of proving to the world where we go, then there are some symbolic things that you show. And Georgian state has made that choice on, I'm Minister of Defense, and I have lots of officers, right? It's exactly the same choice I make every day when recommending either higher rank or anything in army.
Is age enough? I mean, we don't have enough time to debate because the time is actually off already, but is age enough? I mean, it's age enough to be...
No, that's what I'm saying. Western educated, integrated into Western world people is the choice the Georgian government has made, both in military and in civilian service. Okay. And it kind of naturally defines the age as well.
The last question. Promise, because we don't have the time. 5 seconds to respond.
Okay.
For a politician it's difficult, but still.
Yes and no.
How do you feel about your former president being the governor for this?
The only feeling I have is that luckily he is not the headache of my country anymore. Good luck to Ukrainians.
Okay, thank you very much for the response. It was a very interesting one. And thank you for being here, Minister. It was a pleasure.
Thank
As
you
you
very
know,
much.
Romania is a friend of Georgia. And this talk show is also a friend of Georgia. So I felt between friends. I like your last answer. I have the same feeling myself. And again, I wish you good luck here in the meetings you will have with the Minister of Defense, which was our guest, by the way, and all the other officials in convincing them whatever you have on your agenda. We don't want to know.
I don't need to do convincing here. I'm just among friends.
Okay.
I know that.
That's true. So thank you again for being in our talk show, and we are waiting you for any other time when you are here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vă mulțumesc și noastră pentru plăcerea de a participa la această discuție și la această emisiune. Ne vedem săptămâna viitoare cu un ambasador interesant după această ediție. O să vedeți. La revedere!
Emisiune realizată cu sprijinul Camerei de Comerț și Industrie a României.